Salam everybody! Hi, my name is Heifa and I am the author of this beautiful cookbook, Dine in Palestine. I wanted to say a special thank you to Moraine Valley Community College for featuring me for Arab Heritage Month. Thank you so much, and thank you especially Suzanne for reaching out and wanting to feature my work. It means so much to me. So a little bit about myself. I'm a New Jersey native, but a few years ago I moved to Chicago when I married my husband, and I missed Mama's food. I missed the food that I grew up eating, and I didn't have proper measurements to recreate them. I had a lot of background in the kitchen. I worked at a bakery for 10 years, and I always loved to cook and bake, and I definitely had a knack for it and a passion for it, but I wanted to recreate Mama's flavors. And some of you may experience the same thing, but when you ask your parent or whoever it might be for a recipe, they'll say a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and you never really get proper measurements. So I found myself becoming a recipe developer. I started putting a little this, a little that, taking notes and trying to perfect dishes that I grew up eating, and I'm like, oh, okay, that's what it tasted like. This is it. And that's how I segued into my blog, fufuskitchen.com, where I document these recipes and preserve them and share them so others could do the same thing. So they're able to follow the recipe and make these at home and feel that comfort of home like I do. Fast forward a few years, about 2 years ago, I was approached to write a cookbook, and I was so excited. It was something that I always wanted to do. My father is actually a librarian. For all his career, he's been a librarian, and I grew up really in the library reading books often, and he would always bring back books. And to think that I wrote a book is pretty cool for me, because it's just something that it was an environment that I was around pretty often. And I remember even like going to the cookbook sections and never really seeing much Middle Eastern or Arabi, and especially Palestinian. You rarely would see that. So for me to be a Palestinian cookbook author with a book with Palestine on the cover, it's just surreal. When I was initially approached to write a book, I was approached to write a Middle Eastern cookbook. So something more, uh, you know, generic, broad. And to be honest with you, I wasn't okay with that. If I was going to write a cookbook, it had to truly represent who I am. And as a Palestinian, I wanted it to be a Palestinian cookbook. And that was something that maybe in the beginning I got a little pushback on, because Middle Eastern just sounds, you know, more user friendly, you can say. But alhamdulillah, it got approved, the concept got approved, and 2 years later, my book is published now, and you could find it wherever books are sold. And a little bit about my book, there's 60 recipes in there broken down into different sections. So you start off with a breakfast section, which is one of my favorites because Sunday breakfast in our household was always the best. And you'll find a lot of the dishes that we had for Sunday breakfast in there, whether it's hummus, alayat bandura, ka'ak al-quds, or what else? Lebna. There's just so many delicious dishes in that section that I just absolutely love. But I could say that about my whole book, because then there's a vegetarian section, because a lot of Arabi food, a lot of Palestinian food is vegetarian friendly, and you'll find that as you look into my book. And then there is a main entree section where you'll find your shish barak, your dawali, your maklube, your sniyat dajaj, bamiyan, all those nostalgic traditional meals that I personally grew up eating and loving. And then there's a dessert section, which I had a little fun with the dessert section. Like I said, I have a baking background. I worked at a bakery for 10 years, and it's always where I found myself to be creative. So although there's traditional recipes like nafe and awame, there is also fun recipes like a date cheesecake inspired by the flavors of dates, where you could find in Palestine, everywhere, of course, specifically Jericho. So You'll find a date cheesecake, you'll find something like ishta fruit tarts. So it's a play on fruit tarts that you'd typically pick up in a bakery but made with ishta. So yeah, there's some creative recipes in there as well. And of course, a few beverages to wrap up the book. I really do my best to be very approachable in the way I share my recipes and techniques, so no one is intimidated making these dishes. This book is a big part of me. It is me sharing a part of my identity, a part of Palestinian history, the food, the culture. It's just so important for me to document and preserve in something tangible, something that you could never say that Palestinian food didn't exist. You could never try to erase who we are. And this book to me represents that. And I want you to take away from this book feeling very inspired to go into the kitchen and maybe cook meals that you grew up eating and enjoying and just, never had proper measurements for, but now you could recreate that. And it's just a beautiful feeling when you have a bite of food that brings you back to a nice memory. And I want the readers and I want those who taste my food and try these recipes to feel like they are getting a piece of back home. I'll often look at my book and read it and see the images and be transported back. So I would love for whoever is reading to feel that as well.